Hello, this is Sherline of Kathanika. The story I have for you today is a folktale from Nagaland. It is called The Cry of the Crow. This story is brought to you as part of the Utsar 2020 festival organized by the Jaya He Museum of the Mumbai International Airport. Let us now go to Nagaland, to a place called Zunheboto, where the Sumi Nagas live. Our story unfolds here. Here, by the well I stand. Come, take a peek into the well. Look, what do you see? Your reflection in the crystal clear water? Here, by the well, sits a jet black jungle crow. As I watch, the crow opens his beak and lets out a mournful cry. An old grandmother hears the crow and says, There, he cries out again. There is Kohito, looking for his family. This is the story of the cry of that crow. In a village in Zunheboto, there once lived an orphan boy called Kohito. Kohito had a tough childhood. He was neglected and had to work hard for his living from a tender age. Bitter by his experiences, Kohito took a vow that one day he would become famous by doing some good work. The village in which Kohito lived often faced a shortage of water. Kohito watched the women and men of his village go to the distant waterfalls to fetch water. Kohito decided to do something about it. Kohito decided to dig out a well at the end of the village. Kohito kept this enterprise quiet. He knew that if the villagers came to know about his idea, they would laugh and ridicule him. And so, Kohito kept the digging of the well hush-hush. Kohito chose a secret spot, right here, an area which was not frequented by the people of his village. And here, Kohito began digging. All his days from his boyhood to youth was spent in digging out this well. Every spare moment that Kohito had went towards deepening or widening the well. Dig, dig, dig. Kohito did not let anybody know about his work. One day, after many years of toil, Kohito hit the water table. Kohito's joy knew no bound when a spring gushed open and the well began to fill with pristine water. Kohito looked into the well and saw his reflection on the mirror like clean water. Kohito's heart was filled with joy. He was able to give a fitting reply to the villagers' neglect and scorn, he thought. With a happy heart and mind, Kohito went to break the news of his feat to his friend Sikose. She would no more be required to go to the distant falls to fetch water. By and by, the villagers got to know of this well. The girls from the village started drawing the well water in their pitchers kept in the kang on their back. The menfolk also followed. After the first wave of excitement was over, a question occurred to everyone. Who had dug out such a nice well? Who had done this fine job? Nobody could answer. The village girls at last asked Sikose, You are the first person to give us news of this well. Do you know who dug it out? Sikose just smiled. Then after a little persuasion, she gave up and the villagers in no time came to know about Kohito. The villagers sought out Kohito and praised him. They gave a grand banquet in his honor. Everyone in that little village celebrated and admired Kohito. Up in the world of the clouds, under the canopy of the blue sky, where the 7 colors of the sun play all day, lived the fairies. The fame of Kohito's well reached there too. The fairies started coming down from their land of light and played in the waters of Kohito's well each night. The fairies played with flowers, leaves, and twigs in the well. At dawn, when the fairies went back to their home in the sky, they left behind the debris of flowers and branches and other things that made the water dirty. When the villagers noticed it in the morning, they got angry and held Kohito responsible for it. Since Kohito has dug out the well, who else could make it dirty? They said. Poor Kohito. He tried to plead his innocence, but nobody believed him. Kohito was, after all, nothing but a young orphan of the tribe. Everybody cautioned him not to make the water dirty. If he did it again, they warned, they would tie his hands and legs and throw him down from the high hill. Frightened, Kohito had to find out how the water got dirty. One evening, Kohito decided to keep watch and sat on the bank of this well. He bent down into the well. His sad face was reflected on the pallid surface of its water. It was a full moon night. Kohito sat still on the bank of the well, deep in thought. A few hours back, Sikose had come and warned him if the water was again polluted, the villagers would certainly punish him. Sikose, of course, tried to believe Kohito that he was not responsible for the unclean water. But then he should find out who did such a dirty thing. Kohito was so absorbed in his own thought that he did not notice when the clouds covered the moon. Fear and worry troubled his mind. Suddenly, the moonlit world seemed to be very calm and quiet. The air was filled with a heavenly perfume. He looked at the sky and found some celestial figures coming down. Down, down, down from the dream world of the blue sky. Quickly, Kohito hid himself behind a tree. A few fairies descended with large, bright wings behind them. They unfastened their wings and got into the well. Kohito observed everything from behind the tree. He dared not stay there anymore. Something very strange would happen now. Shivering with fear, he thought. This was the first time he saw heavenly dwellers. Somehow, gathering courage, he ran towards the village. There was not much time to sunrise. Hey, hurry up! Come to the well! See who are making the water unclean and dirty. Hurry up! Come, right now! Kohito called out to the villagers. The villagers rushed to the well. By now, the sun was high up in the sky. At the well, the villagers found nobody. Only some dirty flowers and leaves were floating on the water. The villagers got furious. They came helter-skelter only to find dirty water. The villagers were annoyed with Kohito. They beat him up for disturbing them from their slumber and went to the village headman to complain against him. Kohito stood stunned. Was it an illusion? What he had seen only a few hours back? Kohito came back to the well and remained there the entire day. A good amount of advice had been showered on him, but nothing made him move. Sikose also came to say a few words. When she saw his plight, she got worried. Had he gone mad? She admonished. Find out the way to stop this dirty business. Otherwise, they will throw you down from the hill. Kohito was unmoved, though he knew the reality of her warning. Kohito at last gathered himself to a firm determination. Whoever was making his well unclean, what he had dug out with such great pain and care, and his very life unsafe, He would take revenge against them, whoever or whatever they might be. A determined Kohito returned home and filled his belly with rice and madu. Though still there was daylight, he went to sleep. Kohito slept the entire evening and woke up at almost midnight. Kohito went back to the well. There, he hid behind a bush and waited. It was a bright, moonlit night. The night birds cooed. Pieces of white clouds sailed across the dark blue sky. The clouds floated across the moon. Right at that moment, a band of elated fairies flew down from their celestial world. Hair unfastened and faces radiant, they loosened their white wings and got into the well and got engaged in the water play, splashing each other with water and screaming delighted with glee. Hurriedly, out came Kohito from behind the bush. He tiptoed to the well and took away a pair of fairy wings. He ran back behind the bush and waited. After some time, just before daylight broke, all the fairies came out of the well. They put on their wings and began flying towards their home in the clouds. When they remembered the blue fairy, who was not with them, they were already halfway through. They saw the sun god coming down on the earth in his chariot drawn by 7 horses. There was no time to go down and search for the blue fairy. The blue fairy at the time was searching for her wings badly. It was about the time of daybreak. Kohito then shot out with the 2 wings from the secret place. There she stood, with eyes as blue as the sky, a dimple on her cheek. Kohito was helplessly enchanted with the celestial beauty of the blue fairy in the fresh, dewy, early hours of the morning. He came forward and held her hands. "Come to my house. You are not in a position to return to your heavenly abode now. I want to marry you. I'll try my best to keep you happy. I promise. Please, trust me." Crying bitterly, the blue fairy bit her lower lip and then followed Kohito to the Naga village. 3 years passed. Kohito then was a person loved and respected among the tribe people. By the fairy wife, he had 2 daughters. He was immensely happy. He sometimes looked at his wife and thought she too must be very happy. After all, Kohito did his best to keep his fairy wife happy. Some more years rolled on. The daughters grew up and spoke the Naga language. The blue fairy had been very unhappy and sad all these years. She was tired of the earthly life and longed to return to her own abode of the clouds. But she was wingless and helpless. How could she sail to her heavenly abode? Kohito had hidden the wings in a secret place. The blue fairy had searched and searched everywhere but could not trace them. Then one day, when Kohito was out, something flashed in her mind and she asked her daughters, "Oh, my darling babies, tell me which side your father goes alone every day before going out." The elder child replied, "Father goes towards the back to the hen house every day before going out for work." Kohito reared chickens. As the hens and roosters made the place very dirty, the blue fairy did not go to that side of the house at all. Kohito did all the errands for the hen house. On getting the information, the blue fairy rushed to the hen house. The mother hen was hatching a clutch of eggs. The moment the blue fairy put her hand into the hen house, it was pecked at. The blood stains appeared like red pearls, but the blue fairy did not care. She pressed her hand a little deeper inside the hen house and her hands touched something. She was sure it was her wings. The blue fairy gently pulled it out. There were her 2 wings, a bit folded and stained with dirt, but otherwise in good condition. The blue fairy was overjoyed. She looked this way and that, and then she held the wings to her bosom. The blue eyes drowned in a sea of tears. How many years back did she untie it? The water play in that full moon night? That was the first occasion she came down on earth at the insistence of her friends, and she had to pay dearly for the folly all these years. The blue fairy cleaned the wings and then put them on her back. She was ready to fly. The daughters of the blue fairy looked at their mother in amazement. The blue fairy said, "I'm going to my abode in the land of the clouds. I'll throw the rope of rainbow from there. Tie yourself with it and I'll pull you up." The blue fairy then opened up her wings and sailed into the sky. There was a shower of rain after a little while, and a rope of rainbow appeared. The daughters of the blue fairy caught hold of the rope and were taken up to the fairyland. In the forest, Kohito was busy cutting trees. Suddenly, he shivered when rainwater fell on him. His axe scattered a little away. He did not like to work anymore. When he was collecting the woods, an iguana ran over his foot. Kohito had a strange feeling that something was not right. Kohito rushed home and called out to his children. Nobody responded. He shouted and entered home. No one was there. The void inflicted him like a sharp spear. Kohito ran into the streets, asking everyone if they saw his wife or children. Nobody could tell. He asked Sekose also. With eyes still and a cold voice, she answered, "Oh, your fairy wife has deserted you at last. What made her live with you so long?" Something flashed in Kohito's mind. He rushed back home and searched the henhouse. Finding the wings gone, he broke down in despair. His life circled in darkness, days after days, nights after nights. There was not even an iota of happiness left in his life. The sun set behind the Dipu hills. The darkness spread its wings everywhere. Kohito sat near his well. Nobody was there. Only a white crow was drinking water from the notches stored in between the stones. After drinking water, the white crow stretched its neck, stared at Kohito. It cawed, "Why are you so dejected, you old fool? Can't you go to the land of your fairy wife, O accursed Naga?" The harsh voice of the crow brought Kohito back to his senses. He looked at the crow amazed and asked, "How can I go? Where to? Do you know where they are?" "Of course I know. First your wife had flown away. Then she took the kids. I was on your housetop. I saw everything." "Where have you been all this while, you blockhead? Tell me where they are," Kohito asked eagerly. The white crow told everything. Kohito sought his advice as to how he could reach the fairyland. "I can take you there, but promise you'll change my white color to black in return. I'm fed up with this color which has made me an outcast." Kohito agreed to his condition gladly. Kohito collected some black soot and they started their journey together. The white crow advised Kohito to imitate his voice whenever they would come across a high hill. Obediently, Kohito followed this instruction all through. At last, they reached the land of the blue fairy. As soon as Kohito stepped into the fairyland, he met his daughters. They informed their mother of his coming. She did not believe it. But when the blue fairy came out and saw Kohito, she was surprised and ashamed too. The white crow was turned to black as promised, and happily it cawed and returned down to earth. Also happy was Kohito with his wife and daughters. He found the cloud land wonderful. everything was well arranged and decorated. No worry about food or dress. One could just walk in the perfumed atmosphere of light, flower, and music. The fairy folk engaged in any activity as they pleased. Hunting was Kohito's favorite sport. He found the fairyland to be full of spotted deer and colored lizards. There were a wide variety of birds too. But the rules for hunting in the fairyland was different from the earth. Hunting was Kohito's favorite sport. He found the fairyland to be full of spotted deer and colored lizards. There were a wide variety of birds too. But the rules for hunting in the fairyland was different from Earth. One could hunt only lizards, and these were so clever and fast to move that even the expert hunters of the fairyland were baffled. Kohito once strung the bow, and what a wonder! He took down a rare lizard. The fairy folk were astonished. Even the expert hunters among themselves very often met with failure in hunting a lizard. And Kohito, a man from Earth who had just arrived here, could do it so easily. They congratulated him for his feat outwardly, but inside they were very, very jealous. Kohito's fairy wife and daughters were of course very happy. Kohito's growing fame as a good huntsman did not go well with the fairy folk. They thought Kohito would certainly degrade them as hunters. This man should be sent back down to his own place. Let him hunt as many animals as he likes there. Hatching a wicked plan in their minds, the fairy folk went to Kohito one evening and invited him to a musical soiree. Come, let us go to the golden-voiced Kinnari. She will indeed be glad to have a person like you. You've earned a good name as a hunter everywhere. Kohito accepted the invitation. He was infatuated with the beauty of the Kinnari and the music in her enchanting court. There was a lavish arrangement for drink. Kohito did not notice as to when the midnight was over in the magical music of the Kinnari. He drank too much in that dreamy atmosphere. He felt very sleepy and then fell into a deep slumber. The men fairy folk were waiting for just this moment. They carried Kohito down to earth and left him beside his well. When the woman's shrill voice broke his sleep in the late morning the next day, Kohito found himself lying near his well. Kohito blinked and tried to gauge the situation. Was it a dream? He summarized. No. All the known Naga faces were there around the well. Kohito remained all day under the tree near the well. Kohito was so dazed and baffled that he could not understand what was happening. Day after day, night after night, month after month, Kohito remained by the well side. Whenever the kind-hearted women gave him some food, he ate. Otherwise, he stayed without food. In this way, gradually, Kohito's body dried up like a black crow. Then one morning, when the Naga woman came to take water, they did not find Kohito anywhere near the well. There was only a crow on the top of the tree which cawed sharply. The woman did not like its unpleasant crowing and abused it in scorn. Be off, you accursed crow! Be off! Go away, you evil creature! Since then, in the village in Zuneboto, whenever a crow caws sorrowfully, the people of the village wonder if it is the unfortunate Kohito looking for his wife and children. And that, my dear friends, is the tale of the cry of the crow. I hope you liked the story. If you did, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and share this tale with your friends. Bye-bye.